Patel, current FBI director, he's alleging he found thousands of documents. I don't know if he just stumbled upon them and he like leaned against the wall and it opened up, but like he's
Indiana
alleged,
Jones style?
right? He found thousands of documents in a secret room that are evidence of the conspiracy between the FBI, the Clintons, and maybe the Obama administration and other international parties to stir up allegations that the Trump administration colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 election. What do you think? We don't know that the documents have not been declassified yet. True or false, Chris? True or false?
Sounds unlikely.
Welcome to episode 81 of the Weekly Docket, a podcast by the Silberman Law Firm. Today is July 31st, 2025. I'm Phil Silberman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Chris Heald, who's our firm's supervising attorney. Chris, real quick, who's your favorite attorney at the firm that works for you?
Don't know why you always hit me with these questions. I have no favorites. I have no favorites at all.
Just like your children, you love them equally.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. My favorite is the one who bills the most that period. That's who my favorite is.
All right. I'll be sure they know.
All right. Let's talk about what's on our docket today. So in our legal news section, we're going to be talking about, and I don't think this is getting enough coverage, but it's the secret room and the burn bags found at the FBI building. What was in the room in the bag? And then in our legal questions section, we'll be answering the question, should I form a nonprofit to operate my business to avoid paying tax? Everybody else does it, and it's the way to get rich. So we'll be answering that question. And then finally, in our rant and rave section, we'll be talking about attorney scams. Yes, even attorneys get taken advantage of. Good show today. Let's go ahead and get it started with our legal news section. This is the secret room and burn bags found at the FBI building. Chris, this sort of caught my attention as super interesting. I don't know if it was like, you ever been to somebody's study and they built the secret room where you push through the wall, or maybe a Potter where the stairs are moving about. But in the FBI building, there just was a secret room. This is deep state conspiracy stuff. You think what's your gut? You think that's possible? Do you think that's true?
Knowing nothing about this, I am certain the government keeps secrets from us. Do they need a secret room? Do any of us know where the FBI even is? Why do they need a secret room? I'm sure they have plenty of secrets, and if they want to cover them up, you and I ain't finding them.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if it's Kash Patel or Kash Patel. Do you happen to know? He's the current FBI director. Do you know how he pronounces his first name?
I think they say it Cash.
Okay, we're going to say Kash Patel, current FBI director. He's alleging he found thousands of documents. I don't know if he just stumbled upon them and he like leaned against the wall and it opened up, but like
Indiana Jones style?
Right. He found thousands of documents in a secret room that are evidence of the conspiracy between the FBI, the Clintons, and maybe the Obama administration and other international parties to stir up allegations that the Trump administration colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 election. What do you think? We don't know that the documents have not been declassified yet. True or false, Chris? True or false?
Sounds unlikely.
Okay.
I think it's somebody from the Biden administration walked out and forgot to lock the door behind him, and they said, "Oh, I forgot to lock that room. Hope nobody finds it."
These burn bags allegedly had like hard drives in them and documents, and most notably, they had John Durham's classified annex to his final report. So John Durham was the special counsel, and he had some annex to the special report, and there was some juicy stuff in there. Here's a quote that we have from an anonymous source. I'm always hesitant to quote anonymous sources, but they're alleging that it has to be kept anonymous because of protections, and ultimately the identity will come out. But here it is, quote, ultimately, the release of the classified annex will lend more credibility to the assertion that there was a coordinated plan inside the U.S. government to help the Clinton campaign stir up controversy connecting Trump to Russia. And the source also says it's really hard to see how Brannon, Clapper, and Comey are going to be able to explain this away. So we'll have to see how this comes out. But there's some big stuff in there. It'd be like the deep state all the Democrats and the FBI and these other international parties colluding to manipulate our government and our elections. The irony being the whole plan was to accuse Trump of manipulating the election, but it was really them. It was really the Democrats who were doing it. Yeah.
I think I share the sentiment of most people that we're just tired of that. Good luck gaining that you mentioned, and I'm not trying to say people shouldn't be interested in it. People should be interested in far more things than they are interested. Things that get traction are usually silly, but
like the Epstein files. They should be interested in the Epstein files.
I don't know that anyone's interested in those anymore either. Things that have gone on this long, we just resign ourselves to, are we still talking about Trump and Clinton? Are we still talking about a Russia thing? I think most of us prefer to just live in the here and now.
What really gets me is the amount of money that both parties spend on these investigations, and it's the taxpayers paying for this. So they get into office and we launch all these investigations, and the cost is like astronomical, like billions of dollars we're spending.
Yeah, I think that's the most ridiculous aspect of it. Let's just move on. No one cares. Yeah. Trump got elected, like him or don't like him. You're not going to gain any more followers by proving anything. You're going to polarize your base and you're going to piss off the other side. You're going to do nothing.
Yeah. Unless it's our firm that gets the special counsel job to prosecute and investigate. If they want to pay us $1 billion to investigate, then I'm totally okay with that taxpayer allocation. But and the ancillary to this story is John Brennan, who was the former CIA director, and James Comey, former FBI director. There's a criminal investigation with those guys. So we'll see if these docs become declassified. We'll see what happens to Comey and Brennan and how that goes.
Yeah, I think that lends a little more credibility. If somebody finds criminal activity, but again, I'm not one, and I think most people should be advised, criminal investigation does not even come close to meaning somebody's guilty. So just saying, oh, well, this person's under investigation, that didn't carry a whole lot of weight. If somebody finds something and crimes are being committed, those should certainly be investigated on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. All right, Chris, let's get on to our legal questions section. And here I have it. Should I form a nonprofit to operate my business to avoid paying tax? Chris, we get a lot of people calling us up and they believe that operating a business as a nonprofit is the secret sauce to becoming rich and avoiding paying income tax. What's your gut reaction, Chris? True or false?
100% no. If you're just going to lie on your taxes, just lie on your taxes. Don't create a scheme that makes it look like you're being truthful. If you're defrauding the government, just go ahead and do it and take your chances. I don't advise it.
So the idea is that nonprofits don't pay income tax, and that's true, okay? Nonprofits don't have profits like for-profit entity does. If you're a for-profit entity, you either have, if you make extra money, if you have income or revenue above your expenses, that's called profit. The profit can really go two places. It can go to retained earnings, or in which it gets reinvested in your business, or it can be paid out as dividends or distributions. Now, nonprofits can have more income than expenses, and they call that a surplus or net assets. And the idea is that eventually the surplus or the net assets get reinvested in the organization's mission and activities. But here's the thing. There's not really, and Chris, you were spot on when you said this, there's not really any non-criminal way to get the excess surplus out of the nonprofit for your own personal benefit. You can commit tax fraud, right? Like you always hear about really rich people. You have this palatial estate and you buy all this art and you claim that your property is the art museum, and you can charge people to come and see the art. And then you can take the admissions, the ticket prices, or the revenue from the tickets, and you can pay the mortgage to your house. But that's really just tax evasion. And that's exactly what Chris says. If you were to do that, and let's say you were living in let's say you were legitimate, that you were really a renowned art collector and you've got this palatial estate. And if you're going to live in one little closet on the estate and the whole rest of it is the nonprofit, then you have to allocate that. If you still have a mortgage on the property, anything associated with the museum space would be as an expense to the nonprofit, and the closet you're using would be your personal expense, right? So you can't commit tax evasion.
We're not tax lawyers, and I don't have the IRC in front of me, but don't you actually have to have a charity? Like, United
Yeah.
Way or Salvation Army. They can make money, they can pay their executives. And then they say, okay, but we're not making any money, but we're definitely allowed to pay our people to do work for our organization. And so what you're
Mm.
describing is people say, oh, cool, I'm going to start my own nonprofit and then I'm just going to pay myself.
Yeah.
But
So
you have to be a charitable organization. That's why churches can do it, because churches, they invest in land, they invest in the building, and they're a charitable organization. They're allowed to maintain the church. They're allowed to maintain the campus and pay people. You shouldn't have priests and reverends running around with a whole bunch of money. Everything should be going right back into the church. If you're just claiming to be a nonprofit, but you are not a nonprofit, you are just outright lying and committing fraud.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can't claim our law firm is a nonprofit and that everything we pay is not taxable. That's not how it works. We are a for-profit business. I think the IRC, from my recollection, is very strict that you must actually be a charitable organization. You must have some aspect of this is what we're doing.
You're exactly right. The big takeaway here is nonprofits are designed by federal law to serve a charitable, educational, religious, or other recognized exempt purpose. And if you're trying to pay these gigantic salaries, we call those excess benefit transactions under the IRC, under the Internal Revenue Code. You can only pay reasonable compensation to employees and not excessive compensation to employees. But Chris, you always get into this debate, and this is where people really go off the rails on this thing, or they start getting these ideas. Let's talk about some big nonprofits and salaries. And this is from CharityWatch.com. We've talked about Nancy Brown for the American Heart Association. Her compensation in 2024 was $4.3 million to run the American Heart Association. Does that sit right with you, Chris?
It sounds high, but we also have to compare it to what does Jamie Dimon make? What do the CEOs of other banks and insurance companies and stuff make? I'm sure they're making tens of millions of dollars. So compared to them, she makes peanuts compared to the other 99% of the world making an insane amount of money.
Yeah, the argument that the American Heart Association is going to have is that they're this gigantic organization and they're so large and it's so complex that to pay their head or their CEO or whatever their position, whatever her position is, that's just what it takes to get top talent, and it is reasonable. They're going to have that defense. James L. Clark, Boys and Girls Club of America, $1.3 million in 2024. Gal McGovern, the American Red Cross, $1.3 million in 2024. That's from CharityWatch.com. My argument on those salaries, Chris, are always, could you find someone really just as competent to do it for 500-600 grand a year? And maybe, but this has been going on for a long time. Unfortunately, people see these salaries, they hear these myths on TikTok and social media. Next thing you know, they're calling us and they want to run their event planning business or they want to run their plumbing business as a nonprofit. And that's not going to work. You're committing tax evasion. That's not what this is for. Okay. It's just completely a different type of deal. Okay.
And I'll appreciate that, because a lot of those, I don't know what watchdog organizations, but there's lots of them and they publish that information. So that is a good thing. If you don't want to contribute to that organization because you feel like the CEO makes too much money, and even further in than that, a lot of these watchdogs look at how much goes to operating, how much of your money actually goes to the cause. And so you can do that research and say, okay, 80 cents on the dollar goes to the cause, or 20 cents on the dollar goes to the cause. Where do I want my money to go? So
yeah,
I get the argument. It definitely makes sense. If they truly are for the purpose of their organization, then they're going to be wanting to get the top talent at the lowest price. And so they say, look, 4.5 is what gets us the best person for the job that's going to make the most money. Hopefully everybody's got the best intentions in mind. We know humans don't always operate like that. So I definitely see the argument both ways.
Chris, if I start a nonprofit legal aid business, I want you to know I'm paying you $4 million a year because that's what it takes to get top talent to run. And Chris will be like, I'm there.
I will.
Yes, I'm excited. Chris is going to defend tenants and eviction suits all day
Absolutely,
long.
I will.
All right. That brings us to my favorite part of the show. This is our rant and rave section, attorney scams. Chris, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this on the show. We may have talked about this on the show with previous hosts. But we get these scam emails all the time. And this came up because one of our less experienced attorneys sort of did not identify the scam. So we're going to try to do this piece and have some of our attorneys listen to it so that they can begin to identify these scams. Here's how the scam goes, Chris. You get an email and the email says, "Hey, I need an attorney. I'm usually selling some sort of equipment like a tractor or a crane. It's a cash sale. We just need you to go ahead and run the money through your trust account, and the buyer's going to send you a cashier's check and deposit the cashier's check, and then wire the next, take a couple days, wire the funds to me as the seller, and keep yourself a big fat legal fee for your trouble." Okay. Have you seen these before, Chris?
I have. Do you want me to go into the depth to which I've seen
Well,
them?
first of all, tell the listeners what the scam is. How does it play out? Do you remember?
Yeah. So you get the cashier's check from the buyer or from the party settling the case. And there's many ways to run it, but the idea is you get a quick check and it comes from Bank of America and it looks like a legit cashier's check. And so you go deposit it in your trust account. And so you think you just deposited a $600,000 check. And then your client says, okay, now that you've got the 600, go ahead and send us 4 so that we can have our money. We can continue the deal. You keep 2 on retainer for yourself. And so the eager, wide-eyed attorney says, this is awesome. I'm transferring 400 to them. I'm keeping 200 in my trust account. I'm going to bill against this. There's going to be a lot of legal work involved in this. I'm going to make all this money. Great deal. Glad I found this. And then as soon as you wire that 400,000, that money's gone. You cannot get that money back. Wires are subject to an extreme amount of fraud. That's why in every closing deal we see from real estate companies, they say, verify all instructions. Wire fraud is on the rise. Everybody's warning everybody about wire fraud because now that money is out of your account. And then it turns out the check was fake. The check doesn't clear, but you don't get your $200,000 or your $400,000 back. So now you've just wired $400,000 in client funds out of your IOLTA account, committing malpractice and losing a bunch of money at the same time. Would be a very bad scam to fall victim to.
Now, Chris is a Wyoming boy, okay, but we can summarize all of what Chris said in pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered, okay? And if you were an attorney that was led astray by greed, you were a hog that just got slaughtered, okay? That's how that goes. So some interesting notes about this. Most of these emails are being generated by enslaved peoples that are in compounds in Southeast Asia. And they're getting really hard to detect because AI is making it really hard. They used to be riddled with tons of grammatical errors that made them dead giveaways, but now they're really hard to catch. And our less experienced lawyers are struggling to recognize these. So we're going to go over now, Chris. I know you don't have the outline, but I'm going to go over some of the red flags in case you're a lawyer out there and you get these emails. Here's how, because some of them can be so good, you may not be able to tell the difference.
I told you, I told you 12 years ago when I said, look, these are easy now. When they figure these out and they get the signature blocks right and they figure out how to do it from better email addresses and the English is perfect, we're screwed. But for now, we can still notice them. And that's exactly what you're talking about now is they've trended that way.
Yeah. Now, here's some of the dead giveaways. One, they're almost always from a Gmail account, okay? And think about it. If you're a legitimate business, very few legitimate businesses are sending emails from a Gmail domain. It's usually like a law firm domain or like our firm, silblawfirm.com or greatestcompanyever.com, right? So that's one giveaway. Next giveaway, they usually involve sales of equipment. See, it seems like tractors and cranes are a favorite ruse for these things. And then finally, you'll often see over and over again, all cash. This is an all cash transaction. They want you to know no financing, all cash. And then you'll start to see some like really weird stuff. Like in this one, the buyer says the buyer will handle all taxation. Very few clients that really need services are going to say that because there's not really that connection. They're not thinking about those things. And then here's, I think, and I'm scared, Chris, the scammers are going to listen to this and we're just going to make their emails better. But the number one way that you can tell is, remember, these are mass emails going out from a compound in Southeast Asia. So they're going out to lawyers all over the country, or some cases all over the world. So they'll say stuff instead of referencing Texas specifically, they'll say something like governed by the laws of their state.
Yeah.
Or it will say, finally, it will say, hey, if you can't do this, a referral will be appreciated. Those are the dead giveaways. Any other things you can think of, Chris?
Yeah. Anything that starts with, I have a business deal in your area. I have a lawsuit
Yeah.
in your area. No.
Sure.
Anything that says, or even if it says in Texas, or if it says,
Yeah.
I was referred to you by, and then they cite a national law firm, right? They want to try to bring credibility to it. And the ones that call, when some of them have been maybe not these mass scams, maybe on a more localized level, but my favorites are the people who think they're the smooth business salesman. And when they say, it's a $200 million deal, if that's too small for your firm, I'll take it somewhere else. Like anytime they say anything like that, I say, okay, goodbye.
Yeah, those are good things that I had forgotten about. And finally, I would say, Chris, if the emails are like overly polite, that's also alarms should be going off. And if they use the term good day,
Yeah.
because we don't usually talk like that in America.
Good day, sir. No, we had one that, like I said, more localized. It didn't have any of that language in it. And it just said, I have a real estate transaction, right? And so we call those people back because we don't know what that means. It could mean one of 1,000 things. And I got hey, I need you to put up $20,000. And then when the deal closes, you'll get back 30. How's 50% on your dollar sound? Just real easy. And I said, why would you do that? Because I knew immediately I said, tell me why you would do that. And he said, I just need it done this way. I said, okay, so you don't have a good explanation. Oh, 50% on your money, that's too good for you? I said, yeah, I guess it is. Sorry.
And meanwhile, you hear everybody else chained to their desk, like talking, running the same scam in the background, or the guy's got like a super thick accent and it's always like a Google Voice number or something like that. All right, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Chris has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcasts. And as a reminder, nothing in this show is to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com. That's info@silblawfirm.com. Tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend.
Till next time.